Introduction. In a world where time itself is under siege, Dr. Helena Weiss and her team must confront a threat that transcends reality. As the fabric of history unravels, they are thrust into a chaotic battle against the enigmatic Chrono Bandits and powerful reptilian overlords. Alternate timelines collide, heroes emerge, and the very fate of the multiverse rests on their shoulders. Torn between duty and personal sacrifice, each member faces impossible choices. Will they restore balance to a fractured reality, or will they fall prey to forces beyond comprehension? Dive into a thrilling, time-bending adventure where every decision could rewrite history and the future. Front Matter. Dedication from author Alden Gray.
To my beloved wife Noel and my precious daughter Ashley. Without your endless support, love, and encouragement, this story would not have come to life. Thank you for being my inspiration and for walking this path with me.
Acknowledgements.
This story has been a journey of heart and soul, and I am deeply grateful to everyone who has supported its creation. To my family, friends, and spiritual teachers, your wisdom and insights have been invaluable. And to my readers, both new and familiar, thank you for opening your minds to this world, for questioning, exploring, and embracing the adventure within these pages. A special thanks to my wife Noel and my daughter Ashley for your patience and unwavering belief in my work. You have been my light through every word and every page.
About the author. Alden Gray is a retired entrepreneur and seasoned author based in Bangkok, bridging the realms of high-stakes business and deep spiritual wisdom. With over 35 years of experience in Taoism, he has dedicated his life to the mastery of manifestation, meditation, and mind force, leading others toward inner harmony and universal balance. His time as a short-term monk in Bangkok profoundly shaped his spiritual practice, infusing his writing with themes of transformation, inner strength, and the search for truth. Alden's stories blend philosophical depth with adventure, offering readers a glimpse into the eternal dance between material success and spiritual fulfillment. Introduction.
Unraveling the Multiverse. The visionary scientist who altered time and reality is more than just a tale of time, space, and cosmic battles. It's a journey into the human spirit, a quest for meaning amidst the chaos of the universe. Inspired by my own life experiences, spiritual explorations, and the delicate balance between material success and spiritual fulfillment, this story reflects the eternal struggle between duty, desire, and destiny. As you journey with the protagonists through fractured timelines and alternate realities, I invite you to ponder deeper questions about existence, choices, and the power of transformation. May this story not only entertain you, but also inspire you to see the interconnectedness of all things, both within and beyond our world. Thank you for stepping into this adventure with me.
Chapter 1. The Singularity Awakens. Dr. Helena Weiss and her team at CERN accidentally create a quantum singularity during a particle collision experiment, causing a destabilization of time. Alarms blare, and the facility experiences a shockwave as Helena initiates emergency protocols, urgently working to contain the crisis. The final preparations. The soft hum of machinery filled CERN's underground halls. Dr. Helena Weiss walked briskly through the corridors, her lab coat fluttering. Today was the culmination of years of work, a quantum experiment that could redefine humanity's understanding of time and reality. Morning, everyone, Helena greeted as she entered the control room, eyes landing on Dr. Raj Patel, already running diagnostics on the Large Hadron Collider. Everything's set for the final test run, Raj said, fingers gliding over touchscreens. Nearby, Dr. Lena Martinez, the team's seasoned technician, adjusted a key instrument. Max, keep the monitor steady, Lena called to the intern. Max, fresh from graduate school, looked overwhelmed but kept his hands steady. Helena glanced over the monitors, her heart racing. Years of work had led to this, a chance to glimpse reality's fabric. She stepped to the console, took a deep breath, and pressed the button. The collider roared to life, particle beams colliding deep underground. The experiment had begun. The first signs of trouble. For a few minutes, the hum of the collider filled the room, everything proceeding smoothly. Helena's excitement grew. Then alarms blared and the monitors flashed red, displaying chaotic readings. "What's going on?" Helena rushed to Lena's station. "There's a massive energy spike, way beyond predictions," Lena replied, fingers flying over the keyboard. Max struggled to adjust the monitor's calibration. "This shouldn't be happening." The energy output was off the charts, the experiment spiraling out of control. "Helena, look!" Raj pointed to the screen. The collider had triggered something beyond expectations. "A singularity," Helena whispered. Raj paled. "We might have created a quantum singularity." "Shut it down," Helena ordered. Lena typed commands, but the alarms continued. The system wasn't responding. They stood on the brink of an unknown disaster. Emergency protocols. Lights flickered as the power grid strained. Technicians scrambled, shouting as systems overloaded. "Everyone, calm down," Helena shouted. "Stick to crisis protocols." She hit the emergency override, initiating a facility-wide lockdown to buy time. The team gathered, fear etched on their faces. "Raj, monitor the energy output. Lena, stabilize the system. Max, check for anomalies," Helena instructed. The team moved swiftly, tension thick in the air. "Helena!" Max shouted. "There's something else!" A shockwave rocked the facility, throwing Helena off balance. "What was that?" Raj asked, panic in his voice. Helena's heart pounded. They had unleashed something uncontrollable. The aftermath. Emergency lights cast an eerie glow as Helena stepped out of the control room, her mind racing. Had they created a singularity? Was reality destabilizing? Dr. Raj Patel appeared, grim-faced. "This is bad, Helena. We might not contain it." "We have to try," she replied, determination stealing her voice. The PA system crackled. "Attention, all personnel. Evacuate immediately." Helena's heart sank. As alarms echoed, she knew they were out of time. "We need to get back to the control room," Raj urged. "If we don't stabilize this, reality could tear apart." Helena hesitated, the weight of their actions pressing down on her. "Let's go," she said, moving forward. The fate of the multiverse now rested in their hands. Chapter 2, Section 51 responds. Agent Nolan Black is dispatched by Section 51 to investigate the quantum singularity at CERN. Flashbacks reveal his troubled history with the Chrono Bandits and his struggle between duty and personal loss, setting the stage for the crisis ahead. The mission briefing. The underground command room of Section 51 was thick with tension. Shadows flickered across the walls as officials huddled around a holographic map of CERN, dotted with red warnings. Agent Nolan Black entered quietly, his scarred cheek and piercing blue eyes drawing some glances, but most were too preoccupied with the disaster on the screens. The hum of machinery filled the silence as he took his place beside Director Kane, Section 51's grizzled leader. "Nolan," Kane began urgently, "we have a situation that demands immediate attention." The display zoomed in on CERN's control room, revealing streams of chaotic data and flashing alarms. "The quantum singularity Dr. Helena Weiss created is causing global distortions, warping timelines worldwide," Kane explained. "If it continues, it could tear through time itself." Nolan frowned at the display. You want me to assess and contain it? Kane nodded. Yes, this isn't just another anomaly. If this singularity grows, history as we know it could be rewritten. The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation settling in. Nolan's mind raced. The singularity's potential to alter history was dangerous, and he knew the consequences of tampering with time all too well. There's more, Kane said, voice lowering. The Chrono Bandits are aware of the anomaly. They've exploited temporal events before. If they get involved now, the situation could escalate quickly. Nolan's jaw tightened at the mention of the Chrono Bandits. His history with the time-manipulating syndicate had driven him to join Section 51 to atone for the chaos they'd caused. Give me everything you have on them, Nolan replied, his voice steady. I can't let them get near this. Kane nodded. You'll be briefed on their recent activity before departure. Prepare for the worst. We don't know how far the singularity's ripples might reach. Nolan stood, the weight of his mission heavy. This wasn't just a job, it was a ticking time bomb that could rewrite all of history. And the bandits would stop at nothing to exploit that chaos. Flashbacks of the Chrono Bandits. As Nolan walked down Section 51's dimly lit corridors, memories of his past surfaced. He had once been a member of the Chrono Bandits, criminals who manipulated time to suit their agendas. Nolan recalled the height of their power. A time heist in the 1950s, targeting a pivotal historical event. They altered events with precision, the timeline changes imperceptible to the world but catastrophic to those aware. In the chaos of one such mission, Nolan lost his wife, a casualty of the bandits' reckless pursuit of power. Her death haunted him, the guilt gnawing at his soul. He had seen how small tweaks to history could destroy lives and alter futures. The memory faded, but the pain remained. Nolan clenched his fists, focusing on the present. The bandits were circling the CERN anomaly like vultures, and he couldn't let them exploit it. He'd lost too much already. Gearing up, the sterile locker room lights flickered as Nolan opened his personal locker. Inside, high-tech gear awaited. A sleek black device resembling a wristwatch to detect timeline distortions, a tactical vest filled with temporal stabilizers, anti-distortion grenades, and an encrypted communicator linked to Section 51's command center. He moved with mechanical precision, each action practiced over years. His mind wandered briefly to the bandits' recent movements. They had been disturbingly quiet before the CERN incident. Now it made sense. They'd been waiting for something like this to exploit. As he fastened his vest, his communicator beeped with an anonymous message. The bandits are in motion. You're not the only one heading for CERN. Nolan's pulse quickened. He had expected their move, but not this soon. There was no time to lose. Sliding the communicator away, he grabbed his pack and headed for the exit. The cold, sterile halls of Section 51 were a place of order, but chaos waited beyond. And Nolan was about to step right into its heart. The journey to CERN. The black government vehicle sped through rain-slicked streets, cutting through the darkness. Inside, Nolan sat silently, his face faintly lit by the dashboard. Duty, guilt, and a desire for redemption stormed through his mind. He gazed out at the world, blurring past. People lived their lives, unaware of the brewing disaster. A quantum singularity threatened to unravel time, but to them, life continued normally. His communicator beeped with a report of strange disturbances, people remembering events that never happened, landmarks shifting, cities altered. The singularity's influence was growing, and time was fracturing. Nolan clenched his jaw. He'd seen this before, the breakdown of reality, creeping in subtly. If they didn't act fast, the damage would be irreparable. The CERN facility loomed on the horizon, a dark sentinel against the stormy sky. The rain drummed harder as Nolan's thoughts turned to the bandits. If they seized the singularity, the destruction they could unleash was unimaginable. But another thought gnawed at him, a temptation. The singularity was a tear in time, a potential gateway to the past. Could he use it to save his wife, to rewrite his own history? Nolan gripped the armrest as the vehicle stopped at CERN's gates. He couldn't afford to entertain those thoughts, not now, not with so much at stake. Stepping out into the rain, Nolan approached the facility's metallic walls. The gravity of his mission pressed down as he reached the entrance, heart racing with urgency and inner conflict. The gates slid open with a hiss, and Nolan stepped inside. His communicator buzzed. "You're in. Contain the singularity." For a moment, he closed his eyes, the sounds of rain and machinery blending into a single noise. There was no room for personal desire. He had to stop this singularity from unraveling time at any cost. Nolan squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever lay ahead, at CERN, within time, and in his own soul. Chapter 3. Ripples in Time. As time rifts from the CERN singularity spread, historical events merge, causing confusion and chaos. Agent Nolan Black is briefed by Section 51 on the escalating crisis as the rifts affect public life and intensify the urgency of containing temporal disruptions. Global chaos unfolds. The world unraveled, one historical event at a time. TV broadcasts showed impossible scenes. Revolutionary War figures mingled with tourists at the Lincoln Memorial, muskets and scrolls alongside smartphones recording the bizarre events. George Washington stood talking with the statue of Abraham Lincoln, leaving the nation in shock. At Cape Canaveral, actors reenacting the Apollo 11 moon landing found themselves surrounded by World War II soldiers, their uniforms caked in mud as if transported directly from battle. Panic spread as onlookers screamed and recorded the spectacle. In New York, a 1920s jazz band played in a retro diner, their music mixing with 1980s synth beats, patrons staring in disbelief. Social media exploded with videos labelled Time Breakdown and Reality Mashup as millions shared clips of surreal historical mashups. Awe and fear spread as more events emerged. Across Europe, Africa, and Asia, time clashed. Napoleon's troops marched under the Eiffel Tower. Pharaohs appeared in modern Cairo, the world watching as time fractured. Nolan's briefing at Section 51. In Section 51's underground HQ, Nolan Black entered a briefing room filled with maps showing global rifts. Analysts hunched over their work, trying to decipher the chaos. Director Kane stood grim-faced by a holographic display of the Lincoln Memorial, where Washington and Lincoln's static-ridden figures locked in conversation. "Time rifts are destabilizing fast," Kane said. "They're merging history with the present, and the CERN singularity is at the heart." Nolan's eyes traced the map's red dots, each marking a breach in time. How could the singularity's effects be this widespread so quickly? "We're detecting anomalies everywhere," Kane continued. "Entire battles are erupting on modern streets, and historical events are bleeding through." Nolan's fist tightened. "This is what the Chrono Bandits wanted." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Chrono Bandits?" "They manipulate time for gain. If they seize the singularity, these rifts will become complete rewrites of history." Kane's expression darkened. "You need to get to CERN, now." An analyst rushed in, tablet in hand. "Massive rifts are forming in Europe and Asia. Julius Caesar is in London, the Ming dynasty in Tokyo. It's spreading faster than we anticipated." "I'm on my way," Nolan said, already heading out. He couldn't let the bandits exploit the chaos. Not again. The public's perspective. The rifts affected not just famous events, but personal lives, turning ordinary moments into nightmares. In California, the Mason family's dinner was disrupted by a shimmer in the corner. A 19th century man appeared, real and confused, staring back at the stunned family. As they struggled to comprehend, more figures emerged, ancestors from a distant era filling the room with ghostly presence. Children screamed, parents clutched one another. Time itself seemed to fold, the boundary between generations dissolving. Elsewhere, Cleopatra appeared in a classroom, regal and silent as students gaped and teachers stammered. Phones captured the moment, spreading the chaos online. In towns and cities, people barricaded themselves indoors, fearing the next rift would bring greater danger. News anchors urged calm as law enforcement struggled to explain or contain the disturbances. The world seemed to tear at its seams. Nolan's journey to CERN. Nolan sat in a government vehicle speeding towards CERN, his face lit by the dashboard's blue glow. Outside, the deceptively calm world masked unraveling chaos. Beside him, Agent Lara Chen reviewed updates. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" she asked softly. Nolan didn't look at her. "Yeah, if time keeps bleeding like this, we're not just seeing figures from history, we're seeing realities colliding." "You think we can stop it?" Lara asked. "We have to. We don't have a choice." They drove on in silence before Lara's voice turned thoughtful. "You ever think about rewriting your own past?" Nolan's grip tightened, the temptation of the singularity weighing on his mind. His wife, their lost life, could he use this to change everything? But at what cost? "I've thought about it," he admitted, "but if we use time to fix mistakes, we'll break everything." Lara nodded in understanding. They both knew the stakes. As they neared CERN, the radio crackled with urgent updates. "Significant disturbances near CERN. George Washington and futuristic soldiers reported nearby." Nolan's jaw tightened as he saw how fast the rifts were spreading. He had to act. Suddenly, the road cracked, air shimmering as a rift formed. "Brace for impact!" the driver yelled as the car swerved. Through the rift, Nolan glimpsed futuristic soldiers clashing with warriors of the past, plasma rifles against swords, their battle echoing through the night. The car skidded to a stop at CERN's gates. Nolan exited swiftly, the facility's structure glowing under the stormy sky. Time rippled around it like a heat wave, distorting reality itself. "Let's go," he told Lara, determination solidified. They raced toward the facility, prepared to confront the chaos and fight to save time itself. Chapter 4. The Hollow Moon Unveiled. Moon Mission Flashback, 1969. The Apollo 11 lunar module hummed as it drifted over the moon. Nolan Black, Chrono Bandits, and Dr. Helena Weiss stood shoulder to shoulder, gazing at the surface below. Their mission was not to witness the moon landing, but to uncover hidden alien technology buried beneath the lunar soil. Disguised as part of the NASA mission, Nolan checked their descent. "We're approaching the landing site. If the intel's right, the alien tech is below where Armstrong and Aldrin will plant the flag." Kira adjusted her scanner, contrasting sharply with the 1960s tech around them. "Unusual energy readings. It's reptilian, buried deep." Weiss tapped a terminal on her arm. "It matches the singularity back in the present. If activated, it could send a signal across time, triggering more rifts." As the module landed, they saw Armstrong and Aldrin preparing for their historic steps, while beneath them, something ancient awaited. "We need to move before the landing team sees anything," Kira urged. Descending from their cloaked pod outside the historical landing zone, they hurried across the moon's surface, guided by Kira's scanner. Each step felt heavy, weighed by the gravity of the moment. The barren landscape was eerie, broken only by their breathing and equipment's faint hum. "There!" Kira pointed to a seemingly normal patch of lunar ground. "It's beneath us." Nolan activated a device to dig silently through the lunar soil, revealing a sleek, metallic object with strange symbols. Weiss's eyes widened. It's connected to the singularity. If activated during the moon landing, history could have shifted. Let's deactivate it. Working swiftly, they disabled the device, its faint glow fading into the dust. Let's hope this doesn't change anything, Nolan said, watching Armstrong's steps in the distance. Kira smiled faintly. For now, history's intact. First encounter on the moon. Back in the present, Nolan, Kira and Weiss explored the hollow moon, a base hidden beneath the lunar surface, confirming conspiracy theories whispered for years. Its sleek, dark walls and pulsating lights hinted at an advanced, living technology. "Stay quiet," Nolan whispered. "We don't know what's here." Kira's hand hovered over her energy blade. "We're not alone," she muttered, scanning the shadows. A metallic clang echoed, followed by a mechanical hiss. A reptilian guard emerged, tall, armoured, with glowing eyes. It sneered upon seeing the team. "Contact," Nolan whispered. "Ready yourselves." The guard fired plasma bolts, narrowly missing Nolan as he ducked for cover. Kira rushed, blade flashing, as she engaged the reptilian in close combat. Weiss, hiding beside Nolan, tapped at her device. "We need to neutralise them before reaching the core, or they'll alert the whole base." Nolan nodded. Kira's blade found its mark, slicing through the guard's armour, and it collapsed with a guttural growl. "Move!" Nolan urged as they pressed forward through the maze-like corridors. They were heading deeper, closer to the core, and the full threat of the reptilians. Section 51's deception. Back on Earth, Dr. Weiss sat at her Section 51 terminal, scanning encrypted communications. A priority, black message caught her attention, meant only for high command. Hesitating, she bypassed the encryption to read it. It was a message from Director Kane, planning to secure the alien tech and singularity to rewrite Earth's history for America's dominance. "Full control over timelines will reshape events," it read. Weiss's heart pounded. Section 51 intended to exploit the singularity, not contain it. They aimed to manipulate historical events, regardless of the risk to humanity. Her fingers trembled as she closed the file. The betrayal cut deep. Section 51 was playing with reality for power, willing to let reptilian technology fall into their hands to tip the scales. She quickly drafted a warning message to Nolan. "Urgent. Section 51 plans to use the singularity. We can't trust them. Proceed with caution." She hit send, hoping it would reach Nolan in time. Suddenly, 2 agents entered. "Dr. Weiss," one said calmly, "Director Kane wants to see you." Had they discovered her breach? Weiss forced composure. "Of course. I'll go now." As she followed them, she knew the danger she faced. There was no turning back. Inside the hollow moon, on the moon, Nolan, Kira, and Weiss delved deeper into the alien base. The corridors echoed with strange energy as they neared the core. "It's close," Kira whispered. The vast chamber they entered was filled with tall, sleek structures pulsing with light. At its centre was a massive device covered in glowing symbols, shifting as they watched. "This is how they control time," Weiss whispered. "The reptilians have been influencing Earth's history, nudging humanity without our knowing." Kira's eyes hardened. "They're preparing for something bigger." Weiss's fingers flew over a console. Energy surges show they're building up to something catastrophic. "A final assault on Earth's timeline," Nolan realised. "We need to shut it down," Kira urged. Suddenly, the room filled with a low hum, growing louder as the symbols on the device glowed brightly. "They're activating it!" Weiss shouted, frantically working to disable the system. "We don't have much time." Nolan and Kira ran toward the device, but a group of reptilian guards appeared, weapons drawn. "Get to cover!" Nolan shouted, diving as plasma bolts lit up the room. Kira moved like lightning, her blade slicing through the reptilians as they fought to protect Weiss and Nolan. "How long?" Nolan yelled, firing back. "Almost there," Weiss replied, fingers racing over the controls. "Hold them off!" The battle raged, time running out as they fought for the fate of the timeline. Chapter 5. Chrono Bandits strike. Malthus launches attacks on pivotal historical events, manipulating timelines across the multiverse. As Nolan grapples with the moral implications of intervention, the team gathers intelligence to counter the Chrono Bandits, preparing to split into groups for a tactical response. The onslaught of the Chrono Bandits. The battlefield lay still before erupting into chaos. Malthus's forces attacked swiftly, descending upon a pivotal 19th century clash. The moment fractured as futuristic warriors in silver armor materialized, plasma rifles blazing, cutting down 19th century soldiers caught in a disorienting temporal collision. Napoleonic cavalry, their horses rearing in confusion, charged at the Chrono Bandit soldiers, sabers meeting plasma in a surreal clash of eras. The confusion spread like wildfire, with the discipline of historical troops crumbling as they faced inexplicable foes. The screams of the dying mixed with the crack of musket fire and the whine of energy weapons. Malthus, standing tall at the center of the battlefield, watched the chaos unfold. For him, the war was a manifestation of his power, a multiverse bending to his will. With a wave of his hand, rifts widened, pulling in soldiers from other eras, Roman legionaries alongside Tudat fighters, each trapped in combat they couldn't comprehend. The sky rippled and time stuttered as soldiers fought drones and bodies from different centuries piled together, a testament to Malthus's ambition to rewrite history in blood. He smiled, knowing this was just the beginning of his vision to control time itself. Nolan's morale dilemma. In Section 51's Operations Center, Nolan stood before surveillance monitors, overwhelmed by scenes of history colliding with the future. He watched soldiers from past wars fight plasma-wielding warriors, aware of the catastrophic consequences of tampering with time. Having been part of the Chrono Bandits himself, Nolan struggled with the temptation to change the past, to save his wife, to rewrite his history. But as he witnessed the chaos on screen, he remembered the cost of such power. Time, he knew, wasn't a game. Every ripple created more destruction. His comm device buzzed. Helena's urgent voice came through. "Nolan, we need you in the briefing room. We're running out of time." Nolan forced himself to focus. He couldn't afford to dwell on the past, not with the world on the brink. He pushed his thoughts aside as he left for the briefing room, knowing he had to act, not reflect, with the multiverse in peril. Gathering intelligence. In Section 51's secure lab, Kira Nova scrutinized a holographic map of the anomalies Malthus was causing. The lab buzzed with urgency as the team processed data from disrupted timelines. "These energy spikes, they're destabilizing entire eras," Kira said, noting how Malthus's manipulations intersected critical points in history. Helena's fingers danced across her tablet, revealing a grim pattern. "He's not targeting random events. Malthus is creating ripple effects, aiming to reshape a single controlled timeline." "What's his endgame?" Kira asked, mind racing. Helena replied, "Control. He wants to rewrite history in his image, using the Chrono Bandits to merge realities." Nolan, absorbing the intel, finally spoke. "We need to find a pattern. These attacks aren't random. If we predict his moves, we can stop him." Helena displayed several key historical points targeted by Malthus. "He's striking pivotal moments that shaped history." Kira's eyes sharpened. "If we can anticipate his next move, we can counter him." Nolan proposed a risky plan to tap into Malthus's temporal energy and create a feedback loop to disrupt his operations. Helena warned, if we miscalculate, it could destabilize everything further. It's a risk we have to take, Nolan asserted. Kira placed a hand on his shoulder. Let's do it. With that, the team began mapping energy flows and finalizing a strategy to counter Malthus. The tactical response. The strategy room's dim light reflected the tension as the team examined the holographic timeline marked by Malthus's attacks. Helena addressed the team. We've identified key points. If we neutralize the Chrono Bandits, we can stop further timeline damage. Kira leaned in, strategizing. We also need to find Malthus's base, likely hidden outside the timeline like the hollow moon. Nolan decided they needed to split up. Kira, lead the team to neutralize the bandits. I'll track Malthus. Tensions flared as Agent Lara Chen spoke up. Splitting up makes us vulnerable. We don't have a choice, Kira insisted. We act now or face irreversible damage. Nolan stepped up. We've faced worse. We've made sacrifices to get here, and we can't stop now. Helena nodded, her voice steady. We can't let fear hold us back. We need to be smart. Malthus expects mistakes. Kira agreed. We hit fast, prevent more damage, then go for Malthus. Nolan took a deep breath, determined. I'll lead the team to track and shut down Malthus's operations. The room quieted as they acknowledged the weight of their mission, one that could save or doom the multiverse. Helena stepped forward, voice resolute. Together, we can do this. With preparations complete, the lights dimmed as a new temporal disturbance flickered on the map. Malthus was making his next move. Let's go, Nolan commanded. We don't have much time. The team split into two groups, ready to confront the Chrono Bandits and save the multiverse from unraveling. Chapter 6. Alliances formed. Helena, Nolan, and Kira forge a strategic alliance to confront the Chrono Bandits and reptilian overlords. Tensions rise from conflicting motivations between Nolan and Kira, but a bond begins to form, uniting them in their resolve to save the multiverse. Forming the alliance. The underground facility hummed as Helena, Nolan, and Kira gathered in the war room, the dim glow of holographic displays illuminating their faces. The facility's hidden location kept them safe from prying eyes, but the urgency of their mission hung heavy. Helena swiped through images of the temporal chaos caused by the singularity and the havoc the Chrono Bandits had unleashed. We don't have much time, she stated. The singularity's destabilizing key moments and more rifts are emerging. If we don't act soon, we'll lose control. Kira's focus shifted to the hollow moon. The reptilians are readying for something big. If they activate their tech, we'll face assaults across multiple timelines. Nolan shook his head. We need more intel. Rushing in without knowing what we're facing plays into their hands. Kira's eyes flared. So, you want to wait while they tear history apart? Helena interjected before the argument could escalate. Both of you are right. We need urgency, but we can't act recklessly. Our advantage is that the Chrono Bandits and reptilians aren't allies. We can gather intel to play them against each other. Kira clenched her fists. We don't have time for that. And acting recklessly gives them an opening, Nolan countered. Helena sighed, cutting through the tension. We strike a balance, gather intel without losing our edge. Kira, lead reconnaissance on the hollow moon. Nolan, track Malthus and the Chrono Bandits. The plan set, the trio prepared to take on their respective missions. Let's move, Helena urged. We've got a multiverse to save. Tensions and conflicts. Tensions simmered between Kira and Nolan as they dispersed to prepare. Pacing through the facility's metallic corridors, Kira struggled with the restraint of strategy over action. She was a warrior, trained to fight swiftly, not to wait. The facility felt like a prison, holding her back from battle. She nearly collided with Nolan around a corner. He raised an eyebrow. In a hurry? Kira crossed her arms. I don't like waiting. We should be acting. Nolan leaned against the wall. I get it, but this isn't a fight we can rush. The bandits and reptilians use tactics we barely understand. Kira's jaw tightened. What are you waiting for then? I'm waiting for a real chance, Nolan said, voice steady. Rushing in leads to mistakes and loss. I'm not taking that risk again. The weight of his words and the look in his eyes, loss, guilt, stopped Kira from arguing further. She understood his pain. The feeling of wishing to have done more moved faster. You think I don't know loss, she said, voice softening. I've lost people too, and every time I wished I could have done more. You can't wait for perfection. Nolan looked away. I'm not waiting for perfection, just a chance. For a moment, the silence between them deepened into understanding. They weren't so different after all. A growing bond. In a quieter corridor of the facility, the usual noise was muted. Kira leaned against a wall, watching Nolan, who stood by a control panel, his thoughts distant. She sensed his turmoil. You seem distracted. Kira broke the silence. Nolan didn't look up immediately. Just thinking, he replied. About what? She asked, stepping closer. My wife, Nolan admitted, and what I could have changed. Kira, understanding loss, felt a pang of sympathy. She didn't know Nolan's full story, but she recognized the sharp regret and guilt. I know what it's like to lose people and wish you could have done more, she said softly. Nolan nodded. But changing the past would have destroyed everything. I could have saved her, but at what cost? Kira understood. They stood at a similar precipice now, the choice to use or destroy the singularity with consequences far beyond their personal lives. You did the right thing. Changing the past never works the way you hope. Maybe, but it doesn't make it easier. Kira nodded. No, it doesn't. The silence between them was filled with mutual understanding, the tension fading into something like camaraderie. You're not as stubborn as I thought, Kira teased. Nolan managed a small smile. Don't let that get around. For the first time, Kira felt a genuine connection. They were bound by their scars and a shared drive to make things right. They weren't just allies, they were kindred spirits. United resolve. Helena stood before the war room's display, laying out the strategy. We've identified 3 critical points on the hollow moon where the reptilian tech is most concentrated. We'll target these in our reconnaissance. Kira, standing resolutely beside Helena, knew the stakes. The earlier tension with Nolan had eased into a unified resolve. Nolan, now focused, nodded. We time our moves right. Too early, we tip our hand. Too late, and we lose our chance. Helena nodded. We'll split up. Kira, take the team to the hollow moon. Nolan, coordinate with Section 51 and track the bandits. We can't let them exploit the singularity. Nolan's gaze was firm. I'll ensure they don't get the upper hand. This is it, Helena said. We act fast and smart. No rushing. Stick to the plan. Kira's eyes burned with determination. We're ready. In that moment, the 3 were united by their mission. The tension that had once divided them now bound them together, each prepared to fight not just for the world, but for each other. Helena's voice softened. Together, we can do this. Nolan's determination solidified. Let's finish this. As they left the war room, the weight of the coming battle hung over them, but they were ready. For the first time since the singularity emerged, they felt a glimmer of hope that they could win. Chapter 7. The Timekeeper's War. The team travels through altered timelines to stop the Chrono Bandits. Facing historical figures like Alexander the Great, they witness altered futures and confront Malthus in a climactic battle, forcing Nolan to confront his grief and make critical choices for the present. The activation of the time travel mechanism. In the Hollow Moon Base's lab, the team prepared for a dangerous mission to confront the Chrono Bandits. Dr. Helena Weiss hovered over the controls, setting coordinates to undo the bandits' alterations and restore the timeline. Nolan watched Helena work, considering his temptation to change the past and save his wife. Kira's resolve remained strong as she adjusted her equipment. We need to be ready for anything. Malthus won't make this easy. Helena reminded them, Malthus is targeting key historical events. We have to stay focused and trust each other. This is bigger than any of us. She pressed the final command, and blinding light engulfed them. They felt weightless before the vortex spat them onto a battlefield. The cacophony of swords, gunfire, and explosions surrounded them, a mix of Napoleonic cavalry, W-Botisung soldiers, and futuristic drones clashing under fractured skies. We're in the Battle of Gaugamela, Helena confirmed. Alexander the Great must defeat Darius III for history to unfold correctly. The bandits are here to stop him. Nolan led them toward a tall figure on horseback, Alexander. They saw figures clad in futuristic armor blending into the battlefield. They're influencing him, Kira said. We need to move. Confronting Alexander the Great. Navigating the chaos, they pushed toward Alexander, his armor gleaming, his eyes conflicted under the fractured sky. Bandits disguised as his generals surrounded him, feeding false information to change his decisions. Kira drew her blade. I'll handle the bandits. Get to Alexander. As Kira fought the bandits, Nolan and Helena reached the king. Alexander! Nolan called out. You're being deceived. These men aren't your generals. They're not even from your time. Alexander's gaze was sharp, suspicious. Who are you? What is this madness? We're here to help, Helena said, her tone steady. Your victory is crucial. These men are altering time to destroy your legacy. Alexander's face contorted in disbelief. Time? Eternal? What trickery is this? It's not a trick. We're trying to stop them from changing your fate. Nolan's voice softened, pleading for Alexander to trust them. Kira fought fiercely, cutting through bandits as Nolan and Helena pulled Alexander from his horse. Let's move, Nolan shouted, guiding them to safety as Kira held off the bandits. In a moment of reprieve, Alexander faced them. What truly awaits me in this future? You're destined to conquer, Nolan said, but we need to save that future first. Witnessing futures. Back at the Hollow Moon Base, the team activated a device to glimpse possible futures created by the distortions. Scenes flickered before them. A dystopian Earth ruled by reptilian overlords, humans enslaved, moving like clockwork under alien eyes. This is what happens if we fail, Kira noted grimly. The reptilians take over, humanity becomes slaves. Helena agreed. This future is closer than we think. The timeline is bending toward this reality. Nolan clenched his fists, feeling anger and guilt. The sight of the oppressive world stirred memories of the bandits' manipulation, wondering if this was their endgame. The vision shifted to a hopeful Earth, one where the bandits were defeated and humanity flourished alongside extraterrestrial allies. Cities blended technology and nature, a symbol of harmony and progress. Is this possible? Nolan asked, his voice quiet with hope. It's what we're fighting for, Helena confirmed. But a new reality emerged, showing a fractured timeline where the sky broke like shattered glass. Historical figures wandered aimlessly, and time itself collapsed. This is the worst-case scenario, Helena whispered. If we can't fix the singularity, everything ends. Nolan said gravely. Among the futures, Nolan glimpsed a world with his wife alive and happy, a life that felt distant and unattainable. He quickly pushed the vision aside. "We've seen enough. It's time to move." The images faded, leaving the team with the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders. "This is it," Kira said. "We either save the future or lose everything." Nolan's resolve hardened. "Let's make sure it's the right future, a reckoning with Malthus." The battlefield was a chaotic landscape of timelines folded into one. Roman legionnaires fought futuristic soldiers, the ground rumbling as different eras clashed. Somewhere amidst the chaos was Malthus, manipulating time to his advantage. "Stay sharp," Nolan warned as they moved carefully through the battlefield. A ripple of energy signaled Malthus's arrival, flanked by his bandits. "You think you can stop me?" Malthus taunted. "Time is a weapon, and I hold the blade." Nolan stepped forward, defiant. "This ends now. No more manipulation." Malthus unleashed a wave of energy, distorting time around them. Kira's blade deflected the first strike, and Helena stabilized the rifts. The battle erupted in chaos as Nolan and Kira worked in tandem to close in on Malthus. "You think this is destruction?" Malthus shouted over the battle. "I'm creating order, a world where I control every outcome." Nolan's anger flared. "You can't control time. You won't control people's lives." With a burst of strength, Nolan tackled Malthus to the ground. "You don't get it," Malthus hissed. "If I don't control time, someone else will." Nolan hesitated but found his resolve. "Then we'll find another way, but it won't be you." Nolan's punch knocked Malthus out, and the battlefield's chaotic energy subsided. Kira and Helena rushed to his side, relieved. "It's over," Helena said. "We stopped him." Nolan's eyes remained somber, knowing their fight wasn't over. They had protected time for now, but the struggle to control the past would continue. As they turned to leave, Nolan glimpsed a fleeting vision of his wife through a fading rift. She was gone as quickly as she appeared, but Nolan pushed the pain aside. "We have work to do," he said. "Let's finish this." United, they moved forward, ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 8. Exploring Alternative Realities. The team travels to alternate Earths, encountering dystopian worlds under reptilian rule and witnessing the effects of alien manipulation. After surviving dangers and reflecting on their choices, they reach a utopian reality, gaining new insights and renewed resolve. Activating the device. In their makeshift headquarters, the team gathered around an alien device that could jump through alternate realities. Dr. Helena Weiss stood ready at the console. The advanced technology, linked to alien artifacts, made the room hum with a strange energy. "Everyone ready?" Helena asked, her fingers poised over the controls. Nolan gave a determined nod, while Kira simply stated, "Let's get this over with." Helena explained that the device would send them to alternate realities, versions of Earth where history had drastically changed. Kira's eyes narrowed. "And we'll land somewhere useful, right? No time with the dinosaurs?" Helena assured her that the device targeted areas of reality disturbances caused by the reptilian overlords. Helena pressed the activation buttons and the machine roared to life. Lights flashed, a swirling vortex formed, and the team stepped forward into a distorted gateway, feeling as though they were falling through space and time. They emerged into a crumbling city, thick with decay and a sense of oppression. "What happened here?" Kira whispered as they took in the dilapidated ruins. Helena scanned their surroundings. "The reptilians have complete control in this reality. It's total oppression." Alien oppression in dystopia. As they cautiously walked through the streets, they took cover behind an abandoned car as a line of human. Captives were led by alien enforcers, reptilian creatures in gleaming armor, carrying electric staffs. Resistance was met with swift brutality. Kira recorded the scene. "People need to know!" Helena's face was grim. This is what happens when they rewrite history until all resistance is crushed. When a protester threw a rock at an enforcer, he was quickly silenced, and Kira's hand tightened on her weapon. "We have to stop this." "Not yet," Nolan cautioned. "We need more information." They watched in silent horror as any attempt at rebellion was swiftly crushed, showing the extent of the aliens' control. Retreating from the patrols, they ducked into a nearby building to avoid detection. Kira's voice was tense. "We need to act fast." The weight of history. In a darkened, abandoned building, the team set up a temporary base. The sight of a world under alien rule weighed heavily on them as they reviewed their data. Helena showed focal points of altered history on a holographic map. The reptilians manipulated key historical moments. We need to find out where it all started. Nolan, lost in thought, reflected on their failures. What if our world is heading down the same path? What if we've already lost? "We can't think like that," Helena replied. "There's always a way to change the outcome." Kira's voice was fierce. "We fight. No matter how far it's gone, we can still turn it around." But Nolan's thoughts lingered on his own past and the weight of his decisions. After a tense exchange, Helena showed detailed scans to track Malthus's manipulation across realities. "We'll find him. He's left a trail of energy manipulation in every world he's touched." With renewed purpose, they prepared to act, knowing that any plan was better than none. A glimpse of hope. They stepped into the vortex once more, emerging into a beautiful landscape, a utopia of towering trees, crystalline rivers, and peaceful harmony. Nolan was awed. "This is Earth." Helena nodded. "An alternate reality! A utopia!" "Looks too good to be true," Kira muttered, still on edge. Figures in light robes approached, radiating peace. "Welcome," said a woman with golden hair. "You are travelers, aren't you? We've been expecting you." "How did you know?" Helena asked. The woman explained that they were aware of the multiverse and had resisted the reptilian overlords by focusing on unity, rejecting fear and division. Kira's skepticism flared. "So you just talked them down?" The woman shook her head. "It wasn't simple. We learned to resist without destruction. We became stronger by refusing to be what they wanted, divided and at war." Nolan remained doubtful. "Our world is different. We're already torn apart." The woman met his gaze calmly. "Every world has challenges, but you can still choose a different path." Staying briefly in the utopia, they learned about peaceful resistance and unity, leaving with a sense of hope and determination to confront the reptilians and Malthus. They stepped through the portal again, armed with new resolve, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. Chapter 9. Betrayals Revealed. In Chapter 9, tensions rise within the team as hidden agendas come to light. Kira's vague motives stir suspicion, while Nolan struggles with his loyalty after revelations of his past with the Chrono Bandits. A failed tactical decision by Helena further divides the group, resulting in a fractured team amidst growing mistrust. The unveiling of Kira's motives. The operations room was filled with tension as the team gathered around flickering, holographic displays of time rifts. Kira adjusted the settings on the table silently, but her withholding of information was causing suspicion. "Kira, what aren't you telling us?" Helena pressed, trying to break through the vagueness surrounding Kira's motives. Kira stayed focused on the screens, evading the question. The Zenith Coalition has resources you can't imagine, she finally responded. They've been tracking the reptilians for centuries. Helena's frustration was obvious. So why are you keeping us in the dark? If we're going to fight Malthus and the bandits, we need to know what they're planning. Kira's composure wavered momentarily. I'm sharing what's necessary, she said. We need to focus on stopping Malthus. The Coalition's tactics aren't transparent, but they work. Helena's eyes narrowed. We can't work on half-truths. The tension grew palpable, drawing attention from the rest of the team. Nolan stepped in, hoping to ease the friction. This isn't the time for distrust, he said. We need to stay focused on the mission and trust each other. Trust has to be earned, Helena shot back before stepping away, and Kira returned to her adjustments in silence. The seeds of distrust had already taken root, and as the team dispersed, they left with their suspicions. Nolan's dilemma. Nolan sat alone in the break room, staring into his coffee. Malthus's words haunted him. Everything you've lost, Nolan. You know it can be undone. Time had always been both his tool and enemy, and the thought of undoing his past mistakes gnawed at him. He had walked away from the Chrono Bandits to stop trying to manipulate time, knowing how destructive it could be. But now, the temptation to rewrite his history with the power of the singularity loomed large. Lara Chen entered, instantly sensing something was off. You okay? She asked. Nolan forced a smile. Just thinking. You're more distant than usual, she observed, leaning in, her tone probing. It's not just about the mission, is it? Nolan's grip tightened around the coffee cup. He was tempted to tell her how personal this was, how deeply the mission intersected with his past. But he held back. There's a lot at stake, he admitted, dodging her question, but my focus is on stopping Malthus. Lara raised an eyebrow. And the Chrono Bandits? What about your past with them? Nolan tensed. He had tried to bury his former life with the bandits, but Lara's perceptiveness made it hard to hide. I'm not with them anymore, he said firmly, hoping to convince himself as much as her. Maybe not, she replied, but the team needs to know where you stand. Nolan hesitated, but maintained his stance. My loyalty is here, to this mission. Is it really? Lara's gaze was piercing, searching for any hint of doubt. But Nolan couldn't reveal his internal conflict, couldn't admit that a part of him was still longing to change his own past. I'm here to stop Malthus, that's it. The silence stretched between them. Lara wasn't entirely convinced, but let it go. Helena's expecting us, she said, leaving the room. As Nolan followed, Malthus's words lingered in his mind, and he couldn't help but wonder if he was fighting to save the future or to change his past. The tactical misstep. In the strategy room, Helena studied projections of potential targets, Chrono Bandit hideouts, and Malthus's operations. Time was running out, and the team's unity was fraying under the weight of withheld secrets and mistrust. We need to act, Helena said decisively. We've located a Chrono Bandit hideout that could provide critical intel. It's time to strike. Are you sure? Nolan questioned. It feels too soon. We don't know enough about their defenses. It could be a trap. We're out of time, Helena insisted. If we wait, Malthus will solidify his control over the timeline. Lara stepped in to mediate. Helena's right about needing to move, but we need more intel before going in blind. Kira's patience was thin. We can't wait around for perfect conditions. If we don't take action now, we might never get another chance. Helena's resolve was unwavering. This is our opportunity. The risks are high, but so are the stakes. We're moving out at first light. Then we need to be prepared. Nolan said cautiously. We can't afford any half measures. Despite their doubts, the team began to prepare, each member weighed down by the potential fallout of the mission. Alone in the strategy room, Helena couldn't shake the nagging thought. Had she made a mistake by forcing their hand? Divided loyalties. Morning came too quickly. The team gathered in the war room, tension radiating off them like a storm about to break. Helena's decision had pushed them forward, but the cracks in their trust were widening. We move now before Malthus can react, Helena commanded. Kira's voice cut through the silence. What if this is exactly what Malthus wants? Have you considered we could be walking into a trap? Helena's eyes were steady. Then we survive. We adapt. We don't have the luxury of waiting. Nolan stepped in, trying to unify the team. This only works if we trust each other. We can't let doubt tear us apart. Trust has to be earned, Kira shot back. And right now, I'm not sure anyone in this room has it. Before the tension could rise further, an alarm blared through the room, and the holographic map lit up with new coordinates. They're moving, Helena said, adrenaline spiking through the group. The bandits are on the move. Then we move with them, Nolan asserted, grabbing his gear. Kira's resolve sharpened. No more doubts, we're all in. The team geared up quickly, and though they moved with purpose, the fractures in their alliance were still there, hanging over them like a storm cloud. They had no choice but to press forward, uncertain if their trust in one another would hold when it mattered most. Only time would tell if they could come together or if their secrets would tear them apart. Chapter 10. The invasion begins. Shortened. Chaos unleashed in the streets. The city descended into turmoil as reality fractured. Buildings shimmered, caught between timelines, and crowds panicked as the world transformed before their eyes. People were suddenly wearing clothes from different eras, and historical figures roamed modern streets. An alien hum permeated the air, and chaotic scenes filled the news broadcasts. The city's familiar skyline warped, revealing medieval castles and futuristic anomalies. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the glow of time rifts turned the sky into an unnatural dawn. Reality was unraveling, and the Chrono Bandits were responsible. If they weren't stopped, time would be destroyed. A plan amidst the chaos. Deep below ground, the command center buzzed with activity as the team tried to make sense of the havoc above. Helena Weiss studied the data, frustration growing. If we don't stop this soon, there won't be a timeline left, she said. Kira Novus, restless and tense, wanted to strike immediately, but Nolan Black warned against rushing in without a plan. Time was running out, and each moment they waited, the bandits gained the upper hand. Kira argued that cities were collapsing, but Nolan insisted on gathering intel before launching an assault. Helena decided to split the team. Kira and Helena would scout hideouts, while Nolan's team investigated anomalies. Tensions ran high, but they all agreed the mission couldn't afford any more mistakes. The first confrontation. The Chrono Bandits arrived in a flash, bursting through massive time rifts. Armored and armed with advanced weapons, they poured into the city, turning the streets into battle zones. Nolan, Kira, and Helena fought their way through the chaotic outskirts, facing buildings that flickered between eras. As Kira brandished her energy blade, Nolan knew they had to hit the bandits quickly to disrupt their momentum. However, each attack seemed to draw more bandits from the rift, and their advanced weaponry put the team at a disadvantage. Helena coordinated with precision, holding the line alongside Kira, but they were overwhelmed. The bandits' weapons distorted the air, and each blast created more temporal chaos. Civilians ran, screaming in all directions, trying to escape. Helena and Nolan realized that to gain an advantage, they needed to shut down the rift itself, which was amplifying the bandits' power. Helena reached the rift to disable it, while Kira fought fiercely to protect her. After an intense struggle, Helena managed to collapse the rift, disrupting the bandits' weapons, but the damage was done, and the war was only beginning. Nolan's past unveiled. Amidst the chaos, Nolan's past weighed on him. As Kira fought a bandit lieutenant, she noticed Nolan's hesitation and confronted him. Forced to reveal his secret, Nolan admitted he was once a member of the Chrono Bandits, having left them years ago. Ashamed of his past, he struggled with revealing the truth earlier. Kira felt betrayed, her trust in him shattered. But before they could discuss it further, Malthus, the bandit leader, emerged through the rift. He taunted Nolan, mocking his internal struggle. But Nolan stood firm. Though he was once part of the bandits, he had changed, and he was determined to stop Malthus. The fight for the future had only just begun, and despite their shaken trust, the team knew they had to confront the bandits together, or time would be lost forever. Chapter 11. To the Hollow Moon. In this chapter, the team launches a high-stakes assault on the Hollow Moon, confronting reptilian overlords who manipulate human history. Helena uses her skills to override the base's defenses, while Nolan faces a former ally from the Chrono Bandits, forcing him to confront his past. Epic battles and advanced alien technology reveal the moon's dark role in controlling humanity, escalating their mission to save Earth. Strategizing for the assault on the Hollow Moon. The lights in the Section 51 meeting room flickered over the team, seated around a table projecting a holographic display of the Hollow Moon base. The alien structure glowed with a bluish hue, highlighting its size and defenses. Helena pointed to the diagram, her voice steady. "We've intel on the Hollow Moon's defense systems," she began. "Energy shields guard the main corridors, making a direct assault impossible. But there's a weak spot." The display zoomed into a hidden passage away from the defense grid. "This is our entry point." Kira nodded thoughtfully. "Their tech is beyond anything we've seen. Automated sentinels, sensors that detect even a fly's breath, but they rely too much on it." Helena agreed. "That's why we go in stealth. Our first objective is to disable the central control hub, the brain of the base. Without it, their defenses collapse and we gain access to their databanks." Nolan, arms crossed, eyed the hologram. "And if we trigger an alarm, reptilian forces will swarm us before we reach the hub." "We'll split into 2 teams," Helena continued. "I'll lead a front team to engage the guards at the entrance. Nolan, you'll lead the second team through the service tunnels to the control room." Nolan's jaw tightened. "And if we don't reach the hub in time?" "Then we're all dead," Helena admitted. "But if we take control, we can end their manipulation of history at its source." Kira spoke urgently. "Security is tight. We should disable the auxiliary power grid first, forcing a reboot. I'll handle the infiltration." Helena nodded. "Agreed. We disable shields, disrupt sensors, secure the hub, no deviations." The room fell silent as the mission's weight settled. Each team member carried personal motivations, but the goal was shared: stop the reptilian overlords. "We launch in 3 hours," Helena said. "Any last concerns?" Nolan broke the silence. "What if we don't come back?" Helena's expression was firm. "Then we don't leave regrets behind." The team rose, the tension easing slightly as they prepared for what could be their final mission. Gearing up for the mission, in the Div Preparia of Section 51, the team prepared for their assault on the Hollow Moon. The tension was thick as each member faced their thoughts and readied themselves for battle. Helena meticulously inspected their equipment, her hands deftly organizing alien technology they'd adapted for the mission. Though a scientist by nature, she couldn't avoid the fact that this fight required more than intellect. The singularity, the Chrono Bandits, fractured timelines. She felt responsible, her work a catalyst for it all. Nolan, at the shooting range, tested a hybrid firearm capable of firing plasma bursts. With each trigger pull, memories of his past battle surfaced, and he wrestled with his own guilt. This mission was more than stopping the bandits. It was his path to redemption. Kira meditated on the floor, focusing on her breathing to steady herself. She carried the memories of her fallen comrades, warriors lost to the reptilian overlords. This fight wasn't just for Earth, but for her people, to honor those who had died before her. Helena glanced at her teammates, acknowledging the weight they all carried. She returned to her work, ensuring everything was perfectly prepared. The team finally gathered their gear, with Kira standing focused and Nolan ready. "All set?" Nolan asked, glancing at Helena. "Signal disruptors ready," Helena confirmed. "It'll block their communications when we're inside." "Good," Kira said. "We'll need any edge we can get." They shared a quiet meal, a brief moment of normalcy before what could be their last mission. When they finished, Helena's face was resolute. "It's time." Gathering their gear, they headed to the launch bay, determined to face the dangers awaiting them on the hollow moon and to protect the future of humanity. Infiltrating the hollow moon. The team's shuttle, cloaked from detection, silently approached the hollow moon. The moon's barren landscape hid the truth beneath, a massive reptilian base. Kira, focused on their path through the moon's corridors, spoke quietly, approaching the energy shield. Helena monitored the scanners, the defenses stronger than anticipated. "The shield extends beyond the base," she noted, her hands moving quickly across the console. Nolan added, "We need to disable it fast, or they'll know we're here." Kira readied a sleek alien device designed for stealth. "I'll handle the shield. If I sync with their systems, we can slip in unnoticed." The shuttle passed through the shield with a faint hum, and Helena exhaled. "We're in." The shuttle descended into a hidden valley identified by Kira. Touching down, they remained cloaked as they disembarked. Outside, the moon's surface was silent, with the alien structures rising sharply against the grey dust. Kira's device revealed a hidden hatch beneath the surface. "Got it. We're in?" They moved swiftly down into the moon's depths, the corridors sleek, metallic, and lined with strange symbols. As they descended, the air felt charged, almost oppressive. "Approaching the control hub," Helena whispered. Rounding the final corner, they found the heart of the base, a vast control room with monitors showing shifting points in human history. Suddenly, alarms sounded. Reptilian sentinels emerged, glowing eyes and menacing. Kira and Nolan responded quickly, taking down the guards with precision. Amidst the chaos, Helena's eyes fixed on a flickering screen showing a massive, spiraling device deep within the moon. Her voice trembled as realization struck. "The moon. It's a weapon," she said, pointing. "It's been controlling Earth for millennia." The moon's dark purpose revealed. The team stood in shock, staring at the spiral structure on the monitor. Helena's blood ran cold as she deciphered its faint energy glow in sync with Earth's oceans. "The moon. They've been controlling the tides," she whispered. "Every major flood. It's all orchestrated." Nolan's eyes widened. "The Great Flood, wiping out entire civilizations. It was them." Kira's face hardened. "There's more. That device, it's emitting a wave that manipulates human consciousness." Helena's stomach twisted. "It's been controlling souls. After death, human souls are drawn back here through a white light, recycled, reincarnated under reptilian control." "So no one moves on," Nolan said, reeling. "They're trapped in a cycle with no memory of past lives." Helena's voice was barely a whisper. "Humanity has been prisoners. Our souls, our choices, everything. Kira nodded grimly. They reassign souls to new lives, ensuring nobody escapes. Nolan's fury built. We have to destroy it. But if we do, Helena argued, what happens to the souls trapped in the cycle? We could trigger chaos. Better chaos than enslavement, Kira retorted. Alarms blared as reptilian forces stormed the control room. Nolan raised his weapon, heart pounding. This was their fight, not just to end physical domination, but to free humanity's souls. Helena frantically worked at the control panel, her voice rising above the battle noise. We need to disable it. Nolan nodded, fighting off the sentinels. Let's finish this. The team fought with everything they had, knowing the moon wasn't just a base, it was a soul prison. They were humanity's only hope for freedom. Helena's strategic mastery. The battle raged, reptilian sentinels swarming the control room. Kira and Nolan fought in sync, but they were clearly overwhelmed. Helena ducked behind a console, her eyes darting over the alien technology. She knew the base's systems could be turned against the reptilians. Kira, cover me, she yelled. Kira's shots pushed back the sentinels, giving Helena space to work. The alien controls were far more advanced than she had anticipated, but she quickly hacked through layers of security, focused despite the chaos. Hurry! Kira shouted, deflecting a guard's blow. Helena's fingers flew over the controls, sweat beading on her brow as she bypassed firewalls. With a beep, the system unlocked. I'm in, Helena cried, and immediately rerouted the base's defenses to target the reptilians. The room flooded with red light as sentinels froze, their systems temporarily disabled. Got a few minutes, Helena said, urgency in her voice. Let's move. Kira nodded. Nice work. Let's use this. Helena's fingers hovered as she stared at the base's control monitor. She could disable the whole facility, but at great risk. Nolan's shout cut through her hesitation. We need to go. Helena activated a final sequence to destabilize the base's power grid, planning for it to self-destruct after their escape. Let's move, she ordered, leading Nolan and Kira as they battled toward the exit. Nolan's internal conflict. Racing through the Hollow Moon's labyrinthine corridors, Nolan, Helena, and Kira knew their time was limited. Helena's tactical override had bought them a few precious minutes, but the reptilian defenses would soon reset. Reaching the command hub was their only chance to disable the base permanently. As they neared the base's core, Nolan felt a growing unease, a sensation like a weight pressing on his chest. Entering a vast chamber lined with control panels showing Earth's history, Nolan froze at the sight of a familiar figure, an old comrade from the Chrono Bandits. His gleaming armor and hardened expression spoke of battle and betrayal. The recognition in his eyes was laced with a dark challenge. Nolan, the man growled, I knew you'd come. Kira raised her blaster, wary. Who is this? Nolan's voice was tight. Someone I used to know. From before? The man's smile was mocking. Left the bandits, did you? No, Nolan, you betrayed us. Pretending to be a hero doesn't erase what you did. Haunted by memories of missions that caused chaos across timelines, Nolan struggled with his past. I'm not that man anymore, he said, voice strained. You think you've changed, the man taunted. Prove it. Nolan's hand hovered over his blaster, torn between his past and the man he wanted to be. Kira's urgent voice broke through his hesitation. Nolan, we need to move. But he remained frozen. The man lunged, drawing a blade. Nolan's instincts took over. He fired his blaster, and the man fell, lifeless. For a moment, the room was heavy with silence, broken only by the hum of machinery. Staring down at the body, Nolan felt the crushing weight of his choice. He had killed a part of his past, but, in doing so, lost a piece of himself. "We need to go," Helena whispered, placing a hand on his shoulder. Nolan nodded and, numb, turning away as they pressed on toward the command hub. The mission was far from over, but for Nolan, the battle within had just begun. Chapter 12. Climactic Showdown. This chapter marks the final confrontation between the protagonists and Malthus, culminating in a decisive battle to determine the fate of multiversal stability. As the conflict unfolds, dimensions collide, key characters undergo major developments, and a desperate bid to gain control over the singularity takes center stage. The calm before the battle. The hollow moon loomed like a massive monolith, casting its eerie shadows over the barren lunar landscape. The team, poised for their final confrontation, stood on the brink of facing the heart of their enemy's power. Inside their cloaked spacecraft, tension thickened the silence, and the steady hum of Helena's equipment seemed to echo louder than usual. Helena, Nolan, and Kira exchanged brief glances as they prepared for landing. Helena's fingers hovered over her tablet, displaying the hollow moon's internal layout. "I've found our entry point," she said, keeping her voice steady. "The singularity's core is deep inside, layered with defenses. We need to move fast and smart." Nolan adjusted his weapon, his focus sharp. "Once we're inside, we split into 2 teams," he confirmed, repeating the plan they had carefully strategized. "Kira and I will handle ground forces while you, Helena, disable the control systems. We have to stop Malthus before he gains control of the singularity." Kira's eyes were fixed on the blueprints of the hollow moon's structure. Her alien heritage and experience made her indispensable for the mission. "We can't underestimate him," she cautioned. "The reptilian overlords have controlled Earth's tides, manipulated souls. The singularity is just the start." The ship's descent onto the moon's surface was smooth, and the once silent corridors of the hollow moon were on the verge of becoming a war zone. "Ready yourselves," Helena instructed. "Stay sharp. Once we engage, there's no turning back." The doors opened with a hiss, revealing the moon's alien interior, metallic corridors stretching into the distance, dimly lit and casting ominous shadows. Kira led the team forward with the skill of a seasoned warrior, Nolan close behind, weapon ready, while Helena monitored her device, tracking the singularity's core location. The device beeped suddenly. "We're close," Helena whispered. A map flickered on the screen, highlighting the secure core of the base. But before they could proceed, an alarm blared and red lights bathed the corridor in an urgent glow. They had been detected. Malthus's forces were ready. Nolan muttered, "Here we go, get ready." In moments, the team was met by a wave of reptilian sentinels, towering figures with cold, ruthless eyes. Kira lunged first, slicing through the air with precision, and Nolan covered her with expert shots. The narrow corridor filled with the flash of energy blasts, and gunfire lit up the fight. "Keep moving forward," Helena called out, navigating through the chaos as she tried to guide them closer to the core. Her focus stayed split, half on the fight, half on her map. As Kira finished off the last of the sentinels, she turned to Nolan. "That was just a scout team. The real fight waits for us at the core." Helena nodded, urgency on her face. "We're almost there, but we need to disable their systems before they fully mobilize." Without another word, they moved deeper into the moon, the walls seemingly closing in as they approached the heart of the alien base. Each step brought them closer to the battle that would determine the future of the multiverse. The ambush of Malthus's forces, the hollow moon's corridors hummed coldly as the team moved cautiously, tension thick in the air. Shadows danced across the sleek alien walls, every step amplifying their sense of exposure. "Stay sharp," Nolan's voice crackled over their comms. Helena, what's on the scanners? Helena's device displayed blips, closing in fast. Multiple signals. They know we're here, she replied, her voice tense. Kira adjusted her grip, eyes scanning the surroundings. They'll pin us down if we're not careful. Nolan motioned for cover as the corridor stretched ominously ahead. Suddenly, footsteps echoed, and Malthus's elite reptilian soldiers emerged, sleek armor glinting. "Contact!" Nolan shouted, firing his rifle. The shots barely dented their advanced armor. Kira sprang forward, blade flashing in precise, deadly arcs, striking weak points in the enemy's armor. Behind her, Helena worked quickly on her device. "I'm picking up their comms," she said, her voice steady amid chaos. "If we don't disrupt them, we'll be overrun." Nolan, narrowly avoiding an energy blast, called back, "Can you jam their signals?" "I'm working on it." Helena's fingers moved swiftly. Alien voices echoed through the comms as she hacked their systems. Kira darted, deflecting blasts with skill and taking down soldiers swiftly. Malthus's forces continued multiplying, their energy bolts lighting up the corridors, turning the battle frenzied. "They're trying to trap us," Nolan warned. "Move now." Helena's smile flashed triumphantly. "Got it! Their comms are down," she announced, causing the reptilians to falter, their movements disjointed. "Great work, Helena!" Kira shouted between breaths, now finding it easier to fend off attacks. "Helena, head to the control room. Kira, cover her," Nolan ordered, holding off soldiers. Kira moved quickly to Helena's side, both advancing toward their target. But the reptilians were relentless, pushing back hard. "We won't make it without dealing with that group," Kira said, eyes narrowing. "Helena, any advantage you can give us?" Nolan pressed. Helena's mind raced as she glanced at her device. "I can shut down this section's energy grid. It'll go dark. We'll use the blackout to move." "Do it," Nolan urged. Helena rerouted power, plunging the corridor into darkness. The reptilian soldiers hesitated, their helmets struggling to adapt. Kira moved like a shadow, blades slashing with lethal precision. Nolan's controlled bursts picked off enemies in the dark, while Helena stealthily approached the control room. "Keep moving! We're almost there," Nolan whispered. In the blackout, they advanced quickly, nearing the control room, their hope to end this chaos. But the darkness held more threats, and the fight was far from over. The inner struggles amidst the chaos. The lights flickered as the team pressed on through the hollow moon, battling reptilian forces as they neared the singularity control chamber. Nolan led the way, but his thoughts were clouded by the imminent confrontation with Malthus and his own inner turmoil. A sudden flash of light revealed a figure blocking their path. Dorian, Malthus's second-in-command, and Nolan's former ally in the Chrono Bandits. Memories of their shared missions and broken trust came rushing back as they faced each other in the dim corridor. "Nolan," Dorian's voice was cold and accusing. "I knew it would come to this." "I didn't think you'd still be with Malthus," Nolan replied tensely. Dorian's expression was a bitter smile. "And yet, here we are, opposite sides." Helena and Kira sensed the tension, understanding that this was more than just a fight. It was a reckoning. "You don't have to do this," Nolan urged, trying to reach the friend he once knew. "We can stop Malthus together." Dorian's resolve hardened. "Malthus is the only one who can save the multiverse from collapse. You don't understand, Nolan." "He's destroying it," Nolan protested, but the words fell on deaf ears. Dorian's doubt flickered for a second before he raised his weapon. "It's too late," he said, and chaos erupted as they exchanged fire, each strike charged with their shared history. Kira and Helena took on the reptilian guards while Nolan and Dorian clashed, their fight a deadly dance of conflicting ideals and a fractured past. The corridor was filled with energy blasts, clashing weapons, and the echoes of their unspoken regrets. "You don't have to follow him," Nolan shouted desperately. "And what about you?" Dorian retorted. "You think you're better than me. We've both done terrible things." Nolan's heart twisted. Dorian was right, in part. Nolan's hands weren't clean. But he couldn't let the past stop him from doing what was right. Their confrontation became fiercer, personal. And then Dorian's weapon misfired. Nolan saw his chance but hesitated. Could he kill his old friend? Dorian whispered, "I'm sorry, Nolan," and in a flash, fired, hitting Nolan in the chest. Nolan crumpled, gasping for breath as Kira's panicked voice cut through the chaos. Dorian, his expression one of sorrow, vanished into the shadows. "We need to keep moving," Helena urged as she assessed Nolan's injuries. "Malthus is still out there." Nolan nodded weakly, pain radiating through him, but his resolve stronger than ever. With Kira's support, he stood. Dorian's attack had shaken him, but his determination to stop Malthus only grew. The team pressed on, bearing the weight of their mission, knowing there was no turning back. The final confrontation with Malthus. The team approached the core of the Hollow Moon's base, where the singularity chamber glowed ominously. The swirling vortex of light and energy in the center pulsed with an overwhelming power, bending time and reality. Every step felt heavier as they neared Malthus, who stood in front of the singularity, a chaotic orb, crackling with temporal energy. Malthus loomed, calm but fierce, holding a control device that was directly linked to the singularity. He welcomed their arrival with a faint smile. "It's over, Malthus," Helena said, her voice steady but tense. "You'll destroy everything if you control the singularity." Malthus, serene yet resolute, argued that he aimed to reshape the multiverse into perfection, not to destroy it. Nolan stepped forward, anger clear in his voice. "You can't decide the fate of every life and timeline," Malthus countered, claiming that the multiverse's chaos needed order and sacrifices for the greater good. Kira, holding her ground, saw through his manipulation. "This isn't about order, it's about power," she declared. Undeterred, Malthus raised the control device, activating the singularity. The vortex roared, energy flared violently, and the ground trembled. Walls cracked as the chamber filled with the chaotic power, threatening to tear timelines apart. "We have to stop him," Helena shouted, rushing to override the control system. But Malthus was ready. With a flick of his hand, he sent a wave of energy that knocked Nolan and Kira to the ground. Nolan groaned, disoriented but determined as he rose, locking eyes with Kira. Despite their exhaustion, they silently agreed to press on. Meanwhile, Helena's fingers danced over the alien console, her attempts to override the controls blocked at every turn. "I can't shut it down," she yelled. "He's locked the system." Kira charged again, blade drawn, aiming to destroy Malthus's device. But Malthus deflected her with another wave of energy. As Kira struggled to recover, Nolan saw an opening, one last chance to stop Malthus. With a battle cry, Nolan tackled Malthus to the ground. The two grappled for control of the device, their faces inches apart. Malthus sneered. "You think you can stop me? You're nothing, a pawn in the game of gods." Nolan, his strength waning but his resolve fierce, gritted his teeth. "I'd rather be a pawn than a monster." With a final effort, Nolan ripped the device from Malthus's hand and smashed it to pieces on the floor. The singularity's energy flickered as the device shattered, cutting Malthus's control. "No!" Malthus screamed, lunging for the broken fragments. But it was too late. The vortex calmed, its wild energy stabilizing as the singularity pulled back from merging timelines. The room returned to an uneasy stillness. Breathing heavily, Nolan stood over Malthus, whose defeated eyes met his with rage and despair. "It's over," Nolan said, steady and sure. Helena and Kira joined him, the battle behind them, but their victory carried a weight they hadn't anticipated. Malthus was defeated, the singularity contained, but as they stood in that chamber, amidst the lingering energy and destruction, the gravity of what they'd faced, and the cost they'd paid, hung over them all. Chapter 13. A Sacrifice Made. In this emotionally charged chapter, Nolan Black faces a struggle to save the multiverse at the cost of his personal desires. As the climactic battle unfolds, Nolan confronts Malthus in a final duel, leading to a heart-wrenching decision that alters countless realities. Farewells. Before the final battle, the command center of the Hollow Moon base was tense as the team prepared for their final confrontation. The flickering glow of alien technology cast shadows on the metallic walls. Helena Weiss studied a holographic map, knowing the coming hours would decide the fate of the multiverse. The singularity teetered on collapse, and Malthus's plans threatened everything they'd fought for. Beside her, Nolan Black stared blankly at the display, haunted by memories of his wife and the life he'd lost. This battle felt heavier than anything he'd faced before. "Helena," he said quietly, stepping aside with her to speak privately. "What is it, Nolan?" she asked softly, sensing his turmoil. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted. "This isn't just about Malthus. It's about everything I've done, everything I've lost." He ran a hand through his hair. "With the singularity, there's a chance to make it right, but the cost..." He couldn't let his desires destroy the multiverse. Helena gripped his shoulder. "You've always put the mission first, and you're not alone in this. We're in this together." Nolan's small, sad smile showed her words offered some comfort. Kira Novus approached, her expression more open than before. "Nolan, I know we've had our differences, but I respect you. You fought for this team, and you've earned my trust." Nolan, surprised, felt the weight of her words. "Thank you, Kira. That means a lot." Kira nodded, her resolve matching the faint smile on her lips. "Let's finalize the plan. Malthus won't wait forever." Gathered around the holographic map, the team steeled themselves. Helena's voice cut through the tension. "This is it. We know what needs to be done. Kira and I will assault the central hub. Nolan, you secure the singularity chamber. No mistakes. This is our last chance." Nolan's mind raced, knowing this battle would force him to confront all his losses and regrets. As the team made their final preparations, Nolan looked at the faces of those he'd come to care for, the mission that bound them all together. He knew what he had to do, stop Malthus, whatever the cost, for the team, for his wife, and for the multiverse. The duel begins. The eerie silence of the Hollow Moon's corridors was pierced by the hum of alien machinery, vibrating with foreboding energy. Nolan Black led the team deeper, footsteps echoing as they approached the singularity chamber. The air grew colder, charged with strange power, a sense of dread settling over them. Helena Weiss, illuminated by her scanner's glow, checked readings. "We're close," she whispered. "The singularity is just ahead." Nolan's jaw tightened, gripping his weapon, eyes scanning the shifting shadows. Beside him, Kira Novus moved with stealth, blade ready. "Stay alert," she murmured. A static charge filled the air and the temperature dropped. The final battle was imminent. Without warning, shadows moved. Malthus's forces emerged, reptilian sentinels and humanoid soldiers in dark armor. "Ambush!" Kira shouted, drawing her blade and launching herself at the enemy. Nolan fired precise shots, energy bolts lighting up the darkness, but more enemies poured in. Helena, get behind cover, he yelled as an energy blast narrowly missed her. We need to hold them off to reach the chamber. Helena ducked behind a console, frantically scanning for an advantage. We can't keep this up forever. Kira cut down sentinels with calculated strikes. No time to be cautious, she urged. Push through to the chamber, now! Agreed. Nolan fired a volley. Helena, can you override the systems? Give me a minute, Helena replied, fingers flying across the alien console. I can disrupt communications and defenses, but it'll take time. Kira deflected a blast, grunting from the impact. We don't have time! Keep them off her, Nolan ordered, stepping into the fray. Got it, Helena called. Lights flickered violently as the override took effect. Several sentinels froze, their systems glitching. Go! Now! Helena waved them forward. Nolan charged toward the singularity chamber, Kira beside him, cutting through enemies. They reached the doors. The doors hissed open, revealing the core. The chamber was vast, filled with alien machinery. At its center, the singularity, a vortex of swirling energy, rippling the fabric of reality. And before it stood Malthus. Welcome, Malthus said, his voice mocking. I've been expecting you. A chill ran down Nolan's spine. The final confrontation was here. Kira raised her blade. This ends now. Malthus smirked, hands glowing. You think you can stop me? You have no idea what's at stake. Nolan tightened his grip on his weapon. He knew what was at stake, and he was ready to face it. Nolan's final sacrifice. The Hollow Moon's central chamber was a chaotic mess of fallen sentinels, glowing consoles, and the looming singularity, a swirling storm of pure energy threatening to unravel the multiverse. Nolan, fatigued and battle-worn, faced the reality of what he had to do. Malthus's lifeless body lay beside the control panel, a grim reminder of the dangers of attempting to control time itself. Helena approached Nolan, her voice steady but urgent. We did it. Malthus is gone, but the singularity, it still needs to be stabilized. Nolan's eyes remained locked on the singularity, a tear in the fabric of existence whispering to him. He thought of his wife, still alive in some alternate timeline. He knew the singularity could change everything, could bring her back. But that wasn't what was needed now. Nolan, what are you thinking? Helena pressed, sensing his hesitation. He turned, the weight of regret and determination etched on his face. I've thought about fixing everything for so long, and now I have the power to do it, but I know what it would cost. Helena gripped his arm tightly. You can't. If you tamper with it, you could destroy everything. Kira joined them, her voice calm but resolute. She's right. You can't risk all of us, not even for her. Nolan's heart twisted with the memory of his wife, but he knew they were right. The singularity was a ticking bomb, destabilizing all realities, and it needed an anchor, a living sacrifice to fuse it back into place. I can fix this, but there's no way back for me, he said firmly. No, there has to be another way, Helena urged, her voice trembling. There isn't, Nolan replied. The multiverse is at stake. Kira's jaw clenched. You don't have to do this. Nolan's gaze softened as he looked at them, his makeshift family. Yes, I do. Helena's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded in reluctant understanding. We will protect the multiverse. With a determined breath, Nolan stepped toward the singularity. It pulsed in response, sensing his decision. He took one last look at Helena and Kira. Take care of each other. Then he walked into the singularity. The blinding light enveloped him, his body dissolving into pure energy. The chaotic storm slowed and shrank, becoming stable and contained. Finally, the vortex closed, and silence fell over the chamber. Helena and Kira stood there, the weight of Nolan's sacrifice hanging heavy in the stillness. Aftermath of sacrifice. The silence that followed Nolan's sacrifice was deafening. The hollow moon base, once buzzing with life, felt empty, as though its very essence had shifted. The room where the singularity once swirled was still, bathed in emergency lighting. Helena stood rooted to the spot, her eyes fixed on where Nolan had been. The light had swallowed him. He was gone forever. A lump formed in her throat as she tried to process the sacrifice he made. Their mission had succeeded, but at the greatest cost. Nolan had given everything so they could have a future. Kira stood beside her, silent, her face a mask of calm determination, but Helena could see the tension in her body. They had all lost comrades, but Nolan was different. He was their leader, their anchor. "We lost him," Helena whispered. Kira closed her eyes briefly. He made his choice. He knew what was at stake. He saved us all. Helena swallowed hard, fighting the tears. Chapter 14. Reality Shift. In this chapter, the protagonists successfully managed to close the quantum singularity, consequently stabilizing the timelines that had been disrupted throughout their journey. As they reflect on their past decisions and the losses they have faced, they begin to recognize the changes that have occurred in the multiverse. However, as they grasp their victory, subtle hints of new threats on the horizon suggest that their battle may not be over yet. Reflecting on the journey. Helena sat quietly in the dim command center, eyes on the holographic display of the multiverse. The team had closed the quantum singularity, stabilizing disrupted timelines, but the victory felt hollow. Each line on the map symbolized altered realities and the consequences of their actions. She sighed, knowing they'd succeeded, but at a great cost. "You're thinking about it too, aren't you?" Kira's voice broke the silence, heavy with the same sense of loss. Helena nodded. "We've stabilized things, but nothing's the same." Kira moved beside her, gazing at the display. "I've been thinking about those we lost. The team, the battles. In some realities, they're still alive. In others, maybe they never existed." Helena glanced at her. "We all lost something, but we saved countless lives, even if it cost us pieces of ourselves." "I wonder what happens next," Kira murmured. "The reptilian overlords, the Chrono Bandits. Are we done? Or is there more to fix?" Helena ran a hand through her hair. "Time's never finished. There's always something else. A choice unmade. A consequence we missed." The door slid open and Nolan entered. Tired and shadowed by their journey's weight, he locked eyes with Helena, a silent acknowledgement of shared sacrifice. "This is it," he said quietly. "We did it. The multiverse is safe." "But at what cost?" Helena's voice wavered. "Everything has a cost. We saved the timelines, but we paid a price," Nolan admitted. Kira nodded. "And now we live with it. The question is, can we?" Silence settled in as they contemplated the words. They'd won, saved the multiverse, but lost friends, allies, and parts of themselves. "We should remember everything," Helena said softly. "The people we've lost and what we couldn't save. And then decide where to go from here." They stood there, each lost in thought. Healing and moving forward would take time, but for now, they had each other, and that was enough. Unforeseen changes. The atmosphere in the command center shifted from reflection to cautious anticipation as Helena initiated scans. The holographic displays came alive, filled with data from various timelines. Subtle changes emerged, consequences rippling across history from their actions. The team watched as altered versions of events played out before them. "I don't like this," Kira muttered, her eyes narrowing at the swirling timelines. "We closed the singularity, but it feels like we've only scratched the surface of the changes." Helena's focus was on a point in the timeline. "Look," she said, pointing to a screen displaying a version of Earth under reptilian overlord control. Cities are under martial law, humans enslaved. Kira's face darkened. "This is familiar. My people fought this future. Why the Zenith Coalition was formed." Helena nodded. "The singularity was supposed to stabilize everything, but in some places, the damage remains." "What do we do now?" Kira's voice mixed frustration and resignation. "After all we fought for, these realities still exist." Nolan, silent until now, stepped forward to another screen. It displayed a future where familiar faces and buildings from his life appeared. But his wife was alive. "I thought I understood," he said quietly. "But now, my timeline is different. The singularity gave me a second chance." "That's impossible," Helena frowned. "We didn't alter your timeline directly." Nolan shook his head. "Explain this. My life, but not as I remember. She's alive." Kira glanced between them. "We knew there'd be consequences, but this is bigger." "If timelines have shifted this much," Helena said, struggling to process it all, "the singularity's effects are still unfolding." "So, what do we do?" Kira's urgency was palpable. Helena sighed, gazing at the screens filled with endless realities. "We regroup, assess the damage, and then figure out how to fix it." A shared unease settled over the team. They had fought to stabilize the multiverse, but it seemed their battle was far from over. Looming threats and uneasy realities, the team gathered in the dim command center, tension hanging in the air. Helena studied the timelines on the holographic display, her fingers dancing over the controls. "These changes," she murmured, eyes narrowed, "aren't minor. They're massive shifts." Kira paced restlessly. "How? We closed the singularity. Everything should have stabilized." Nolan stared at a timeline with a mix of familiarity and distress. Among the altered futures, one thing stood out painfully clear. His wife, alive, in a version that wasn't his. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "That's my future, but not the one I knew." Helena's voice was firm, but gentle. "We can't change what's been done. We must understand the changes, not alter them." "What about the reptilians?" Kira cut in, her fists clenched. "They're still thriving in other realities. Have we really ended this?" The tension mounted as they grappled with uncertainty, their victory feeling fragile. A sudden alert beeped through the command center. Helena's eyes widened as she saw the message from the Zenith Coalition. "Renewed activity from the reptilian forces. They're regrouping." Nolan rubbed his face, feeling the weight of their next steps. If we don't stop them, they could start manipulating timelines all over again. Helena nodded. "We need to assess these realities quickly. The multiverse isn't as stable as we thought." "No time for analysis," Kira urged. "If the reptilians are preparing to strike, we need to be ready." Nolan glanced back at his altered timeline, the temptation to change his own past weighing on him. And Malthus? Could he still be out there? Helena shared a worried look with Kira. "Possibly. We can't predict how far his influence still reaches." Silence followed, the reality of their incomplete mission sinking in. "We're not done," Kira said fiercely. "We stopped the singularity, but our fight isn't over. We must find our enemies and end this." Helena's voice was resolute as she faced her team. This fight isn't over, but we need to be smarter, understand the changes and be ready. Nolan looked away from his past on the screen. No more looking back. We move forward. Kira stepped forward, her expression fierce. Together, we end this. Helena's eyes scanned the team, filled with resolve. Then let's plan our next move. The multiverse may be unstable, but we're not, and that's all we need to win. Charting a new course. The command center hummed softly, glowing holographic displays flickering against metallic walls. Helena stood amidst projections of multiple timeliners, showing the far-reaching effects of their choices. They had stabilized the singularity, but the marks it left were profound, impacting countless lives across the multiverse. We stabilized the multiverse, Helena said, her voice edged with exhaustion. But it's far from restored. Everything we did left scars. Kira stepped closer to a hologram showing an alternate Earth, peaceful but not their reality. We did what we had to. Without us, the multiverse would have collapsed. But we're not done yet. Nolan, lost in thought, stood apart, staring at timelines he once knew. The timeline where his wife lived was now gone. He knew the risks, but felt the finality sharply. We can't rest, Nolan said. Malthus may be gone, but the bandits and reptilian overlords aren't. If we slip, they'll strike again. Helena met his gaze. Next time, we might not be so lucky. Kira's tone was tense. The Zenith reports reptilians regrouping. They've been waiting for their chance. Helena processed this. And the bandits? Nolan shook his head. We took out Malthus, but the bandits will rebuild. Their influence is still there. Kira's voice cut in. Then we'll stop them, just like we did before. Helena nodded. We need to act smarter. Kira, work with the Zenith. Nolan, monitor any bandit activity. If they make a move, we need to know. Nolan nodded, determined. I'll do whatever it takes. Kira softened. We all will. They stood in silence, absorbing their mission's enormity. They had saved the multiverse, but their world was forever changed. There was no going back, but they found strength in each other. We need to rebuild, Helena said. Not just the multiverse, but ourselves. We can't fight like this, alone. Kira's resolve was strong. We're stronger together. We've proven that. Nolan glanced at the timeline showing echoes of his past, pushing down the pain. Then we fight together. No more running. Helena stepped forward, focused. This isn't over, but we'll face whatever comes, together. Their resolve was mutual, the fatigue of the battle fading as they united. For a moment, the room felt calm, but it didn't last. A red alert flashed across the holographic display. Helena quickly pulled up the data. The reptilians are moving. We need to act fast. Kira cracked her knuckles, smiling fiercely. Let's get to work. Nolan gripped his weapon, finally clear-minded. Ready when you are. Helena looked at her team, feeling both the weight and the strength of their bond. Let's finish this. And with that, they prepared to face the next battle. The fight for the multiverse was far from over. Chapter 15. The future remains fragile in the aftermath of their harrowing battle against the Chrono Bandits and the reptilian overlords. Dr. Helena Weiss, Kira Novus, and their team gather to reflect on the intense experiences and sacrifices they've endured. As they assess the new reality they've created, uncertainty looms over the multiverse, setting the stage for potential new conflicts. Reflecting on the battle's toll, in the aftermath of their battle against the Chrono Bandits and reptilian overlords, Helena Weiss, Kira Novus, and their team reflect on the sacrifices they've made. Though they saved the multiverse, uncertainty lingers. The CERN facility lay in ruins, its once pristine surfaces torn apart. Helena stood in the command room, the holographic display revealing the fragile balance they'd fought to maintain. Exhaustion and the emotional weight of their choices seeped into her bones. The battle's toll was more than just physical scars. "Helena," Kira's voice cut through the silence. She entered, her expression weary yet thoughtful. "The multiverse is stabilizing, but it's different, isn't it?" Helena nodded. "Some timelines are changed, permanently. We fought to protect balance, but—" "Wars leave scars," Kira said softly. "Sometimes it's not about winning, but surviving." They stood together, burdened by shared losses. Nolan entered, his stoic face showing vulnerability. "Is it over?" he asked quietly. "For now," Helena said. "But we can't know the full impact of what's been altered." Nolan, hand on his plasma rifle, spoke firmly. "I don't regret stopping Malthus, whatever the cost." Kira placed a hand on his shoulder. "We did what we had to. That's what matters." But Helena saw the doubt in Nolan's eyes, the pain of letting go of his past and his lost wife. "We move forward," Helena said, her voice gaining strength. "The multiverse may not be perfect, but it's stable." Kira gave a faint smile. "And what now?" "We rebuild! We keep fighting!" For a moment, they stood, connected by their journey and resilience. Helena looked at her team. "We've done something incredible, but there are still threats out there, forces we haven't begun to understand." "And we'll be ready," Nolan said resolutely. "Together," Kira added, determination in her eyes. Helena's heart swelled. Whatever the future held, they would face it head-on as a united team. Realities unfold. Certainly, I'll proceed to reduce the text by 70% while keeping all crucial dialogue and content coherent to the original. The lab's hum of technology filled the room, surrounded by equipment pulsating with the multidimensional energy they had fought to contain. The holographic displays flickered, showing the shifting timelines that Helena, Kira, and Nolan were struggling to understand. Helena, at the central console, adjusted the projections, zooming in on the timelines most affected by the singularity. "These are the timelines most affected," she said, voice steady but uneasy. "We stabilized the core, but the multiverse hasn't fully recovered." Kira stepped closer, concern in her eyes. "What kind of changes?" Helena zoomed in on one timeline, a dystopian Earth dominated by reptilian overlords. "This is one of the worst-case scenarios," she said, "a world where we failed. The reptilians enslaved humanity, and any resistance was crushed." Kira's expression hardened. "We can't let that stand. We've already lost too many lives." Nolan's voice was heavy as he spoke. "We fought to give humanity a chance, a future." The timelines displayed varied fates, flourishing worlds alongside devastated ones. The team felt the enormity of the chaotic possibilities they had set in motion. Kira tapped another projection, an Earth victorious over the reptilians, but left in ruins. "Every timeline we touch, every decision, ripples across the multiverse. Even when we win, we lose. I can't stand by and watch these worlds crumble." Helena faced Kira, her eyes determined. "We've done all we can. We closed the singularity, stabilized the core, but we're not gods." Kira's voice trembled with anger. "Then why did we risk everything if we can't fix the damage?" Nolan stepped forward, calm but firm. "We gave them a fighting chance. We can't control the multiverse, but we can stop any further disruptions, prevent another Malthus from emerging." Helena nodded, Kira's frustration hanging in the air. We lost friends and parts of ourselves, but we can't let that blind us. The multiverse is fragile, and we need to prevent more damage. Kira exhaled, her anger simmering. I know. I just wish we could have done more. There's always more we could have done, Helena said quietly. But if we keep chasing that, we'll end up like Malthus, trapped by ambition. Nolan looked at the holographic timelines, reflecting. We have to make peace with what we've done, or we risk becoming what we fought against. A silence settled as they reflected. They'd saved the multiverse, but altered countless lives. Helena stepped away from the console. We'll monitor the timelines and rebuild. Kira nodded, the fire in her eyes not extinguished. But if the reptilians make a move, we'll be ready. Nolan smirked, easing the tension. We've faced worse, and we'll face whatever comes next. Together. Helena smiled faintly. Together. A moment of camaraderie. The command room settled after hours of intense debates and decisions. Despite the moral struggles and looming multiversal threats, a quiet relief took hold. The singularity was closed, and the reptilian overlords defeated, at least for now. Helena leaned back, the hum of the consoles offering a rare peace. Kira, across from her, stared at a display of the stabilized timeline, both exhausted and resolute. Nolan tapped the table, lost in thought. The silence was comforting, but heavy with all they'd endured. You know, Helena broke the quiet. We've seen some bizarre things along the way. Kira smirked. Bizarre doesn't even cover it. Helena chuckled. Remember that reality with the sentient dust storms? Kira laughed, lightening the mood. Still finding sand in places I didn't think possible. Nolan leaned in. There was a timeline where everything was backwards. People walked backwards. Time flowed backwards. It was like a tape on rewind. They shared rare laughter, finding humour amidst the stress. Kira recalled a training exercise with the Zenith Coalition where a shapeshifter turned into a massive rubber duck during a stealth op. None of us knew what to do, she said, smiling. Your instructors must have loved that, Helena teased. Didn't exactly earn top marks, Kira admitted, grinning. Laughter filled the room, the earlier tension lifted. For a few moments, they weren't saving the multiverse. They were just people sharing absurd stories. Nolan sighed contently, his laughter fading. It's moments like this that make all the sacrifices worth it. Helena nodded. What's kept us going is knowing we're not alone. Kira raised her glass of makeshift coffee. To the weirdest journey I've ever been on, and the people who've made it bearable. They clinked glasses. To survival, Helena said. To friendship, Nolan added sincerely. They drank in a lighter mood, the room filling with a quiet sense of accomplishment. Despite the uncertainty ahead, their bond, forged in battle and challenge, felt stronger than ever. For now, that was enough. Fopio. Preparing for the unknown. The early morning light streamed through the broken windows of CERN, casting a warm glow across the command center. The fight for the multiverse was over, the timelines were stable, but a lingering uncertainty filled the air. The team gathered together, knowing this was only a pause, not an end to their journey. Helena stood at the window, bathed in the dawn's light. The world outside seemed calm, almost too calm, and she felt uneasy. It's not over, she murmured, her voice heavy with the weight of unspoken concerns. Kira joined her, eyes on the horizon. It's quiet. Too quiet, she said. The Zenith Coalition is reporting troubling activity. The reptilians, they're regrouping. This fight isn't done. Helena's expression hardened. I feared as much. They'll be back, more desperate and dangerous than ever. We need to be ready. Nolan approached, holding a small device. I intercepted a transmission. Chrono Bandit activity, he said. Malthus wasn't the end. There are factions still out there, stirring up trouble. Kira faced him, eyes narrowing. So, we're not done with the bandits either. No, Nolan replied. There are still those trying to disrupt the timelines. We need to stay on guard. Helena turned from the window, the uncertainty fueling her resolve. We can't be complacent. Keep tracking disturbances, monitor every anomaly. We have to stay one step ahead. Kira nodded firmly. We've fought too hard to let things unravel now. Nolan tightened his grip on the device, a sense of purpose in his gaze. Whatever happens, we'll handle it. Together. The team began planning, detailing their next steps, aware that the battle wasn't truly over. As sunlight flooded the room, illuminating their tired faces, there was a shared hope, even amidst the looming uncertainty. They had survived the worst and proven their strength. The fight for the multiverse would continue, but they were ready. They faced the fragile dawn of a new era, prepared to confront whatever came next, together. Conclusion. In the end, as the team stood together, gazing out over a world forever altered by their actions, a profound silence settled over them. The battle had been won, but the scars left behind, both on the multiverse and in their hearts, would take time to heal. Helena, Kira, and Nolan knew their journey was far from over, yet in that quiet moment, they found solace in each other's presence. Their bond, forged in the fires of chaos and sacrifice, had become unbreakable. The future remained fragile, but with their resolve, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The end.